The little girl's voice cracked through the smoke like broken glass.
"Take the dog, not me. Please, he's worth saving. I'm not."
She pressed herself against the injured German shepherd, shielding his body with her own as flames roared closer. Staff Sergeant James Sullivan froze, his hand outstretched, staring at the 7-year-old who genuinely believed a dying animal deserved rescue more than she did. In 12 years of combat, he'd never heard anything more terrifying than a child begging to be left behind. Before we begin, please subscribe and stay until the end of this story. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this message of hope has traveled. Now, let's begin. The evacuation checkpoint had been chaos for 16 straight hours. James Sullivan stood at the edge of the makeshift triage area, watching families pour out of the smoke-filled mountains like refugees from a war zone. His K9 partner, Havoc, sat rigid at his side, ears rotating like radar dishes, filtering through the cacophony of crying children, shouting parents, and the distant roar of wildfires consuming the Bitterroot Valley. At 39, Ghost, as his unit called him, carried the kind of weariness that didn't show in posture, but lived behind the eyes. His face was lean and weathered, jaw covered in 3 days of stubble, and his hands never stopped moving, checking gear, adjusting straps, maintaining the illusion of control when everything around him screamed otherwise. Havoc suddenly went rigid. The Belgian Malinois' entire body locked, nose lifting toward the tree line. Not the alert for explosives, not the sit for contraband. This was something else. Something wrong. "What have you got, boy?" Ghost murmured. Havoc whined, high and anxious, then bolted. "Havoc, heel!" The dog ignored him completely, crashing through the smoke toward the forest's edge. Ghost swore and ran after him, his boots pounding dirt, lungs burning as smoke thickened around them. 20 yards in, Havoc stopped so abruptly that Ghost nearly tripped over him. That's when he saw her. The girl couldn't have weighed more than 50 pounds. She was curled in the ash and pine needles, arms wrapped around a dog that looked more dead than alive. Her clothes hung off her frame like rags on a scarecrow, and her face— Jesus, her face was covered in dirt and tear tracks, eyes wide with terror that didn't belong on any child. "Hey," Ghost said softly, dropping to one knee. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm here to help." She flinched violently, pressing herself harder against the injured dog. "It's okay. I'm a Marine, see?" He pointed to the patch on his shoulder. "I'm one of the good guys." "There are no good guys," she whispered. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. Ghost forced himself to breathe slowly, to project calm he didn't feel. "What's your name?" Silence. "Okay, I'm Ghost. This is Havoc." He gestured to his K9, who had lowered himself to the ground, making himself smaller, less threatening. "Can you tell me what happened?" The girl's fingers dug deeper into the other dog's matted fur. The animal was in bad shape, ribs visible, breathing shallow, one leg twisted at an unnatural angle. "I need to get you both out of here," Ghost said. "The fire's getting closer." "Take him first." Her voice was barely audible. "Take Sergeant. He's a good dog. He tried to protect me." "I'm taking both of you." "No." She looked up then, and Ghost saw the burns on her arms, the scars that spoke of old injuries, deliberate ones. "You can only carry one. Take him." "Sweetheart, I can—" "Take the dog, not me!" Her voice rose to a scream. "He's worth saving. I'm not. I'm broken and bad, and nobody wants me anyway. Just take him." Ghost went completely still. In 12 years of combat, In firefights and ambushes and moments when death felt close enough to touch, he had never heard anything that scared him more than this child begging to be abandoned. "Who told you that?" he asked quietly. "Who told you that you weren't worth saving?" She looked away. "Everybody." "Well, everybody's wrong." He moved closer, slowly, the way he'd approach an IED. "Listen to me. I'm going to pick you up. Then I'm going to pick up Sergeant. And we're all walking out of here together."
"You can't carry both."
"Watch me." He scooped her up with one arm. God, she weighed nothing, and she went rigid with shock. With his free hand, he gathered the injured dog as gently as possible. The animal whimpered, but didn't struggle. "Havoc, lead out." The Malinois took point, and Ghost followed, pushing through smoke and heat, his arms burning, his lungs screaming. But he didn't stop. He wouldn't stop. The girl spoke against his chest, so quietly he almost missed it. "Why are you helping me?" "Because that's what we do," Ghost said. "We don't leave people behind." "But I'm nobody." "You're somebody to me." She started crying then, silent tears that soaked through his uniform, and Ghost felt something crack open inside his chest, something he'd kept locked down since Baghdad, since the IED that killed his entire fire team while he was 20 feet away, pulling security, alive when he should have died with them. They broke through the smoke into the checkpoint. Medics rushed forward, and Ghost had to fight the instinct to hold on tighter. "She needs a full exam," he said, lowering her onto a stretcher. "Burns, malnutrition, possible abuse, and the dog needs a vet, now." "Sir, we're triaging human casualties first, then I'll take him myself." Ghost's voice went flat, the tone that ended arguments. "Get me a vet, or get out of my way." A young EMT stepped forward. "There's a veterinary clinic 2 miles south. I'll drive." "Good man." As they loaded Sergeant into a vehicle, the girl grabbed Ghost's sleeve. "You're really taking him?" "I give you my word." "Nobody keeps their word." "I do," Ghost said. "And I'll be back for you. That's another promise." She searched his face, looking for the lie, the trick, the moment when adults revealed their true nature. When she didn't find it, something shifted in her expression. Not hope, not yet, but the smallest possibility of it. "My name is Mia," she whispered. "Hello, Mia. You're safe now." "That's what they all say." The EMT was waiting, engine running. Ghost squeezed her hand once and moved toward the vehicle. Havoc jumped in without command, positioning himself beside the injured dog. And they were gone. At the hospital, while a veterinary surgeon worked on Sergeant, Ghost stood in the hallway and called his commanding officer. "Sir, I need to report a possible child abuse situation." "Ghost, you're supposed to be running an evacuation checkpoint, not playing social worker." "This is serious. The kid's got burns, scars, malnutrition." "Then report it to Child Protective Services and get back to work. We've got 300 civilians to process." "Sir, That's an order, Staff Sergeant." The line went dead. Ghost stared at his phone, jaw clenched, then dialed CPS. He got a voicemail, left a message, called again. Another voicemail. "Damn it," Havoc whined, sensing his frustration. "I know, boy, I know." 2 hours later, Sergeant was stabilized. The vet, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, met Ghost in the waiting room. "He'll live," she said, "but he's been severely neglected. Broken leg, infected wounds, dehydration. Somebody left this dog to die." "How long ago?" "Weeks, maybe. He's a fighter, though." She paused. "I scanned his microchip. You're going to want to see this." She handed him a printout. Ghost read it twice, then a third time, his chest tightening with each pass. Military working dog number K458. Status: KIA, Afghanistan, 3 years ago. That's impossible, he said. This dog is alive. Exactly. The vet crossed her arms. Which means somebody reported him killed when he wasn't. And I'm betting they made money doing it. Ghost's mind raced. Military working dogs were expensive assets. Retirement, medical care, rehoming, all of it cost money. If someone could fake a combat death and sell the dog instead... I need to make a call, he said. He reached out to Martinez, an old buddy who'd gone into military criminal investigations. Sent him the microchip data. Got a response in 15 minutes. This is bigger than one dog. I'm pulling records now. Stay on this. Ghost drove back to the checkpoint as sunset turned the smoke-filled sky orange and red. Mia was sitting outside the medical tent, wrapped in a blanket, watching the road with the intensity of someone waiting for the next bad thing. When she saw him, her eyes went wide.
You came back.
Told you I would. He sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Sergeant's going to be okay.
Really?
Really. She pulled the blanket tighter.
What happens to me now?
CPS will come get you, place you in foster care until...
No.
The word was immediate, absolute.
No foster homes.
Mia,
you don't understand.
Her voice dropped to a whisper.
They'll send me back to him. They always do.
Ghost's stomach went cold. Back to who? She looked at him with eyes far too old for 7.
My guardian, Colonel Vance.
Your guardian is military?
Was. He's retired now. Runs a camp for troubled kids.
She said the words like they tasted rotten.
That's what he calls it. But it's not for helping. It's for hurting.
Mia, if someone's hurting you, it doesn't matter.
He has papers. He's legal. He always wins.
Ghost wanted to argue, to promise her the system would protect her. But he'd seen too much to believe it himself. Instead, he asked, What happened to your parents?
House fire, 2 years ago. They said it was an accident.
She picked at a thread on the blanket.
But my mom was scared of Colonel Vance. She told me once that if anything happened to her, I should run.
Why was she scared of him?
Because he wanted the money.
What money? Mia looked up at him.
My parents had a trust fund. For me and my education. After they died, Colonel Vance became my guardian. He controls everything now.
Every instinct Ghost had developed in combat was screaming. How did you end up in the forest with Sergeant?
I ran away from the camp. Found Sergeant in a pit behind the old barracks. He was just lying there, bleeding. I couldn't leave him.
Her voice cracked. So I took him and walked. I didn't know where to go. Then the fire started. Ghost pulled out his phone and called Martinez again. I need a deep background check on a Colonel Richard Vance, retired, running some kind of youth camp in Montana. Ghost, what are you into? Something bad. Real bad. He hung up and turned back to Mia. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Colonel Vance hurt you? She pulled up her sleeve, revealing burn marks arranged in perfect circles. Cigarette burns.
He said I needed discipline, that I was ungrateful, that nobody else would ever want me because I was damaged.
Ghost's vision tunneled. His hands shook. He clasped them together, forcing control. He's wrong, he said, voice rough. You hear me? He's wrong. About all of it. But no. He turned to face her fully. You are not damaged. You are not unwanted. And nobody has the right to hurt you. Mia stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then why does everyone let him? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Before Ghost could answer, headlights cut through the dusk. A black SUV pulled up to the checkpoint, and a man stepped out. He was tall, mid-50s, with silver hair and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mia went white.
That's him.
Colonel Richard Vance approached with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no. He wore expensive outdoor gear, pristine, untouched by the ash coating everything else, and carried a leather folder. "There you are, Mia," he said warmly. "We've been so worried." Mia grabbed Ghost's arm.
Don't let him take me, please.
Vance's smile tightened. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" Ghost stood slowly, placing himself between Vance and the girl. "Staff Sergeant James Sullivan. I found her in the forest, escaping the fire." "How fortunate. I'm Colonel Vance, her legal guardian." He extended the folder. "You'll find all the documentation here. I've come to bring her home. She's not going anywhere until CPS evaluates the situation." Vance's expression cooled. "With all due respect, Sergeant, this is a family matter. Mia has some behavioral issues, running away, telling stories. It's part of why she's in my program." "Stories?" Ghost gestured to Mia's arms. "Those burns look pretty real to me." "Self-harm, sadly. It's in her file." Vance's voice carried the weight of rehearsed authority. "The camp is designed to help children like her. By leaving her to die in a forest? She ran away during the evacuation. We've been searching for her ever since." Havoc growled, low and menacing. The dog's hackles were raised, teeth bared at Vance. "Control your animal," Vance said sharply. "He doesn't like you," Ghost replied. "Dogs are good judges of character. Sergeant Sullivan, I don't want trouble. But I will involve law enforcement if necessary." "Go ahead, call them." Vance's jaw tightened. For just a moment, the mask slipped, revealing something cold and cruel underneath. Then it was gone, replaced by practiced concern. "Mia, sweetheart, tell the sergeant you want to come home." Mia pressed harder against Ghost's back.
I want to stay with him.
"See?" Vance spread his hands. "Oppositional defiant disorder. It's all in her psychological evaluation." Ghost's phone buzzed. A text from Martinez. "Call me now." "Excuse me," Ghost said. He stepped away, keeping Mia in his peripheral vision, and dialed. Martinez answered immediately. "Ghost, what the hell have you stumbled into?" "Talk to me." Richard Vance, retired colonel, dishonorable discharge covered up, now runs Vance Youth Academy, which has zero state oversight because it's technically a private ranch on tribal boundary land. I've got 6 missing persons reports from the past 4 years, all kids from foster care or immigrant families. Nobody followed up. Jesus. It gets worse. I pulled the records on that dog. Sergeant wasn't the only one. Vance has been buying retired military working dogs, except they're not retired. They're listed as KIA, but the bodies never come home. He's selling them. Ghost looked back at Vance, who was watching him with predatory patience. "What about the trust fund?" $2.4 million. Parents were tech engineers. Vance is the executor. He's been bleeding it dry. Phantom expenses, inflated costs. Mia's inheritance will be gone in 18 months. Can we stop him? Not without proof, and not tonight. He's got legal guardianship. If you don't hand her over, he'll have you arrested. Ghost closed his eyes. What if she's not here? What? What if I don't know where she is? Ghost, don't. He hung up and walked back to Vance. She's gone. Vance's composure cracked. What? While I was on the phone, she ran, probably into the woods again. Ghost shrugged. Kids like her, traumatized, scared, They bolt. You're lying. You're welcome to search. Vance stepped closer, voice dropping. You're making a mistake, Sergeant. I have connections. I can make your life very difficult. Get off my checkpoint. They stared at each other, two men who'd spent years learning how to read combat, how to recognize when the enemy was weak and when they were dangerous. Vance smiled slowly. This isn't over. No, Ghost agreed. It's not. The colonel climbed back into his SUV and drove away, headlights disappearing into the smoke. Ghost waited until he was gone, then walked behind the medical tent. Mia was huddled there with Havoc, shaking.
Is he gone?
For now. Ghost knelt beside her. But he'll be back. And when he comes, he'll bring law enforcement. And I won't be able to stop him legally.
Then I'll run again.
No. Ghost made a decision that would change everything. We're going to fight him. The right way.
How?
Your mother. What was her full name?
Sarah Chen.
Why? Chen. Is that Chinese? Her dad's family came from Guangdong. Her mom was Salish. Ghost's pulse quickened. Salish? As in the tribe? Yeah, my grandmother was full Salish. She died before I was born. Mia, if you have tribal heritage, the Salish Kootenai Nation has legal jurisdiction over child welfare cases. They can overrule state custody.
Really?
We need to get to the reservation. Tonight.
You'll help me?
Ghost looked at this 7-year-old girl who'd been taught she was worthless, who'd tried to save a dying dog instead of herself, who'd survived things that would break most adults. Yeah, he said. I'll help you.
Why?
He thought of his fire team, of the brothers he couldn't save, of the years he'd spent wondering why he survived when better men died. Because maybe I'm supposed to. Mia studied him with those two old eyes, then slowly reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were small and cold and trembling.
Okay,
she whispered.
I trust you.
And Ghost realized, with a clarity that felt like a punch to the chest, that he'd just made a promise he had no idea how to keep. But he'd die trying. The drive to the Salish Kootenai Reservation took 2 hours through smoke and darkness, every mile feeling like a countdown to something Ghost couldn't name. Nia sat in the passenger seat of the borrowed truck, Havoc pressed against her legs, and Sergeant, sedated and bandaged, lay across the back seat. She hadn't spoken since they left the checkpoint, just stared out the window like she was memorizing the landscape in case she never saw it again. Ghost's phone rang. Martinez. Tell me you didn't do what I think you did, Martinez said without preamble. I don't know what you're talking about. Vance just filed a kidnapping report. Says you took the girl. There's a bolo out on your truck. Ghost's hands tightened on the wheel. How long do I have? Maybe till morning if you're lucky. Ghost, man, you need to bring her back before this gets worse. It's already worse. You saw the reports. Reports aren't evidence, and Vance has lawyers who'll bury you. Then I better move fast. He hung up and glanced at Mia. She was watching him. They're looking for us, she said, not a question. Yeah. You could still take me back. Say I ran and you were just returning me. They'd believe you. I'm not taking you back. Why not? You barely know me. Ghost exhaled slowly. When I was in Afghanistan, my whole team got hit by an IED. I was 20 feet away, pulling security. Watched it happen. Couldn't do anything. He paused. I spent 3 years wondering why I lived when they didn't. Maybe this is why. Mia was quiet for a long moment. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, Despite everything, Ghost almost smiled. You're probably right. I usually am. They reached the reservation just after midnight. The tribal council building sat at the center of a cluster of homes and community structures, lights still burning despite the hour. Ghost had called ahead, explained the situation to whoever answered, and been told to come immediately. Elder Grace Redwing met them at the door. She was in her late 60s, silver hair pulled back in a traditional braid, wearing jeans and a denim jacket over a ribbon shirt. Her face was deeply lined, eyes sharp and assessing, the kind of woman who'd spent a lifetime fighting battles most people never saw. "You're the Marine," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "And this is Mia Chen." Mia stepped forward, suddenly small again. "My grandmother was Helen Beartrack. She married a Chinese immigrant named David Chen. That was my grandfather." Grace's expression shifted, softened. "I knew Helen. She was my cousin's daughter. Good woman, strong." She looked at Mia more carefully. "You have her eyes." "I never met her." "She would have been proud of you." Grace stepped aside. "Come in. The council is waiting." Inside, 5 other people sat around a large table. Ghost recognized the weight of authority when he saw it, the way these people held themselves with quiet power that didn't need to announce itself. Grace made introductions. Council members Joseph Running Crane, Margaret Whiteplume, David Kickingwoman, and our tribal attorney, Thomas Birdtail. Also Officer Maya Tallpine from Tribal Police. Maya was younger than Ghost expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back severely and a uniform that looked like it had seen real work. She studied Ghost with professional suspicion. "Staff Sergeant Sullivan," she said. "You're aware there's a warrant for your arrest?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you came anyway?" "The child needed protection. Your jurisdiction supersedes state custody in cases of tribal children." Thomas Birdtail leaned forward. He was mid-40s, wearing a suit that looked out of place but fit perfectly, lawyer and traditionalist occupying the same body. "That's true, but we need to establish lineage first." "I have my mother's birth certificate," Mia said quietly. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, worn soft from handling. "And my grandmother's. I kept them hidden from Colonel Vance." Grace took the documents, examined them, then passed them to Thomas. He studied them for a long minute. Helen Beartrack, enrolled member of the Salish Nation, married David Chen in 1968. Their daughter, Sarah Chen, born 1969. Sarah married Michael Chen, no relation, in 2015. Mia Chen, born 2016. He looked up. "This is legitimate. Mia has 1/4 Salish heritage, which grants us jurisdiction." Margaret Whiteplume spoke for the first time. She was in her 50s, wearing traditional dress, her hands folded calmly on the table. "Tell us why you ran, child." Mia looked at Ghost. He gave her a small nod. "Colonel Vance hurts kids," she said simply. "He calls it discipline, but it's not. And he takes the money our parents left us. And when kids try to tell, nobody listens because he has papers that say he's allowed." "Did he hurt you?" Margaret asked gently. Mia pulled up her sleeves. The burns were visible even in the dim light. "He said I needed to learn gratitude, that I was costing him money just by breathing." Joseph Running Crane, the oldest council member, made a low sound of disgust. "And the state did nothing?" "I tried to tell my caseworker. She said I was making up stories for attention." Ghost pulled out his phone. "I have a contact in military criminal investigations. He's been looking into Vance. May I?" Grace nodded. Ghost dialed Martinez and put him on speaker. "Tell them what you found," Ghost said. Martinez's voice crackled through. "Colonel Richard Vance, dishonorable discharge in 2008, covered up through political connections. Runs Vance Youth Academy on the edge of tribal land, specifically positioned to avoid state oversight. We've identified 6 missing persons reports connected to his facility over 4 years. Additionally, he's been fraudulently obtaining retired military working dogs, reporting them as KIA, and selling them to fighting rings. The room went completely silent. "You have proof of this?" Thomas asked. "Working on it, but the pattern is clear." "How many children are currently at his facility?" Margaret's voice was tight. "Records show 12, but I suspect more." Grace looked at Maya. "We need to move on this." "Tribal jurisdiction ends at the boundary," Maya said. "His camp is technically just outside our authority." "Then we petition the federal government," Thomas said. "This involves military fraud and child trafficking. FBI has jurisdiction." "That'll take days," Ghost said. "Maybe weeks. Vance knows I took Mia. He'll move the other kids, destroy evidence, disappear." "Then what do you suggest?" Grace asked. Ghost met her eyes. "We force his hand. Make him come to us." "Explain." "Vance wants Mia because she's his cash cow. That trust fund is worth millions. If we announce publicly that she's under tribal protection and the council is auditing her finances, he'll have to respond. And when he does, he'll make mistakes." Maya shook her head. "You're talking about using a child as bait." "I'm talking about protecting her while drawing him into a fight he can't win legally." "He has connections, resources." "So do we." Ghost looked around the table. "You have sovereignty. I have military contacts. And Mia has the truth. That's more than most people get." Mia spoke up, her voice small but steady. "I want to do it, if it helps the other kids." "Mia, you don't have to," Grace started. "Yes, I do. They're still there, still getting hurt. I got out. They didn't." The council members exchanged glances, having a conversation without words that Ghost recognized from his own command structure. Finally, Grace spoke. "We'll grant emergency custody to the tribe pending a full investigation. We'll also file a formal complaint with the FBI and request an immediate audit of Mia's trust fund." "How long before Vance knows?" Ghost asked. "We'll make the announcement at sunrise. He'll know by breakfast." "Then we have maybe 12 hours to prepare." Maya stood. "I'll coordinate security. We move Mia to a safe house on the reservation. Sergeant Sullivan, you'll need to make a statement to tribal police." "Understood." As the council began making calls and drafting documents, Grace pulled Ghost aside. "You know he'll come for you specifically. You humiliated him. Men like that don't forgive." "I'm counting on it." "Why? Why risk everything for a child you just met?" Ghost looked across the room at Mia, who was sitting with Margaret, accepting a blanket and hot chocolate with the careful politeness of someone who'd learned not to expect kindness. "Because nobody else did," he said. Grace studied him for a long moment. "Helen used to say that some people are born into their purpose, and some people stumble into it. Either way, once you know, you can't unknow." "Yes, ma'am." "You're Salish now, whether you know it or not. We protect our own." The words settled into Ghost's chest like an anchor. By 3 in the morning, Mia was installed in a small house on the reservation, guarded by Maya and 2 other tribal officers. Sergeant was transferred to a veterinary clinic run by the tribe, where a young vet named Dr. Sarah Whitcomb promised to give him the best care available. Ghost tried to sleep on a couch in the council building, but gave up after an hour. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from his command demanding explanations. Calls from Vance's lawyers making threats. And one text from Martinez that made his blood run cold. "Vance just bought a plane ticket. He's coming to Montana. Arrives 0800. Ghost forwarded it to Maya, who called immediately.
He's not wasting time, she said.
No, he can't afford to.
We're ready. I've got officers positioned around the safe house and the council building. If he tries anything...
He won't. Not yet. He'll go legal first, try to overwhelm you with paperwork and court orders.
Let him try. Our sovereignty isn't a suggestion.
Ghost heard the steel in her voice and felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you for believing her.
I grew up on this reservation,
Maya said quietly.
I know what it's like when nobody believes you. When the system protects the abuser because he's got better lawyers.
She paused.
We don't let that happen here. Not anymore.
At dawn, the tribal council released a statement to every media outlet in Montana. By 7, it was on the news. By 7:30, Ghost's phone was ringing with a number he didn't recognize. He answered. Sullivan.
You self-righteous son of a bitch.
Vance's voice was barely controlled rage.
You have no idea what you've done.
I've protected a child from an abuser. Pretty straightforward.
I am her legal guardian. That council has no authority.
Actually, they do. Tribal sovereignty. Look it up.
This isn't over.
No, Ghost agreed. It's just getting started. Vance hung up. 2 hours later, a convoy of vehicles arrived at the reservation. Ghost watched from the council building as Vance stepped out of a black SUV, flanked by 3 lawyers and 2 private security contractors. He was dressed in an expensive suit, hair perfect, the picture of respectability. Maya met them at the boundary line. Ghost couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read the body language. Vance pointing, demanding. Maya standing firm, unmoved. The lawyers presenting documents. Maya shaking her head. It went on for 20 minutes before Vance turned and walked back to his vehicle. But he didn't leave. Just sat there, staring at the council building like he could will it to collapse. Ghost's phone buzzed. Grace. He's filed an emergency petition with federal court. Hearing tomorrow morning. Ghost texted back. Expected. Can we win?
Thomas says yes, but it'll be close.
That night, Ghost sat with Mia in the safe house. She was drawing pictures with crayons someone had found, her movements careful and precise. What are you making? He asked.
Sergeant, before he got hurt.
She held up a picture of a healthy German shepherd standing proud.
So I remember what he's supposed to look like.
He's going to get better.
I know. Dr. Whitcomb told me.
She set down the crayon. Ghost? Yeah?
What happens if we lose tomorrow?
If the judge says I have to go back? Ghost wanted to lie, to promise her everything would be fine, but she deserved the truth. Then we fight harder, he said. We appeal, we find new evidence, we don't stop.
But I might have to go back, even for a little while.
Over my dead body. Mia looked at him seriously.
That's not a good plan.
Probably not.
Will you visit me? If I have to go back?
The question broke something in Ghost's chest. Mia, listen to me. I am not letting you go back to that place. I don't care what some judge says. I don't care if I have to.
Ghost, you can't break the law for me.
Watch me. She smiled then, sad and small.
You're going to get in so much trouble.
Yeah, well, wouldn't be the first time. Maya knocked on the door.
We've got a problem.
Ghost stood. What?
FBI just called.
They're opening an investigation into Vance, but they can't move on the facility until they have enough evidence for a warrant. Could take weeks.
We don't have weeks.
I know. Maya hesitated. But there might be another way. I'm listening. One of the kids from Vance's camp escaped 6 months ago. She's been living on the streets in Missoula, too scared to come forward. Thomas found her through a social worker contact. Maya pulled out her phone, showed him a photo of a teenage girl with haunted eyes. Her name is Sophie Morales. She's willing to testify, but she needs protection. Bring her here. Ghost, if we're housing multiple escapees from Vance's facility, we're painting a target on this entire reservation. Then we better be ready when he comes. Maya looked at him for a long moment. You really don't care what this costs you, do you? No, Ghost said simply. I really don't. Sophie Morales arrived just before midnight, brought in by a tribal social worker. She was 16, rail thin, with scars on her wrists, and the same 2 old eyes Ghost had seen in Mia. When she saw Mia, something passed between them, a recognition that needed no words. You got out too, Sophie said. Yeah. Did he? Sophie gestured vaguely. The burns. You? Sophie pulled up her shirt, revealing a lattice of scars across her back. Cattle prod. He said it was behavior modification. Ghost had to walk outside before he did something he'd regret. Havoc followed him, pressing against his leg, grounding him the way the dog had learned to do in combat when Ghost's PTSD threatened to spiral. I'm okay, boy, Ghost murmured. Havoc whined, disagreeing. Yeah, you're right. I'm not. His phone rang. Martinez. I've got something, Martinez said without preamble. Vance's financial records. He's been skimming from 6 different trust funds, not just Mia's. Total theft. Over $4 million. But here's the thing. He's moved most of it offshore in the past 48 hours. He's running. Or preparing to. Ghost, if he gets spooked, he'll disappear, and those kids at the facility will vanish with him. Then we don't spook him. We trap him. How? Ghost looked back at the safe house, where 2 traumatized children were finally safe. Finally believed. We give him what he wants. Which is? Me. The plan was insane, and everyone knew it. Ghost stood in the council building at 4 a.m, surrounded by people who should have told him to walk away. Grace Redwing sat at the head of the table, her face carved from stone. Maya Tallpine paced near the window, hand resting on her sidearm. Thomas Birdtail reviewed documents with the intensity of a man preparing for war, and Martinez was on speakerphone, his voice tight with worry. You're talking about offering yourself as bait, Martinez said. Vance will kill you. Not if he thinks he can use me first. Ghost leaned forward. He needs to discredit the tribal council's custody claim. What better way than to prove I'm unstable? A violent veteran who kidnapped a child, manipulated tribal authorities, and poses a danger to everyone around him. That's exactly what his lawyers are already arguing, Thomas said. Right. So we let him think he's winning. I agree to a psych evaluation, supervised visitation with Mia, the whole thing. Make it look like I'm caving under pressure. Maya stopped pacing. And then? Then he gets cocky, makes a move, and we're ready. Grace spoke for the first time. You're asking us to gamble with your life. I'm asking you to trust that I know how predators think. Vance won't kill me until he's sure he's won. And by the time he realizes he hasn't, it'll be too late. What about the children at his facility? Sophie's voice came from the doorway. She'd been listening, her thin frame wrapped in a blanket. While you playing games with him, they're still there. Ghost met her eyes. That's why we're doing this. The FBI needs evidence for a warrant. We're going to get it. How? You're going to wear a wire and testify. On camera. Everything he did to you. Everything you saw. We make it so public, so documented, that the FBI has to move immediately. Sophie's face went white.
He'll know it was me.
He already knows you escaped, but this time, you won't be alone. You'll have the tribal police, the council, federal protection, and you'll have me.
Why should I trust you? I don't even know you.
Because I got Mia out, and I'm going to get the rest of them out too. Sophie looked at Mia, who'd appeared behind her, Havoc at her side.
It's true,
Mia said quietly.
He keeps his promises.
Sophie's hands trembled. Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive.
Okay, I'll do it.
The federal hearing was scheduled for 9 that morning. Ghost arrived at the courthouse in Missoula wearing his dress uniform, medals displayed, every inch the decorated Marine. Vance was already there with his legal team, looking confident and composed. When their eyes met across the lobby, Vance smiled. Ghost didn't. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Patricia Horowitz, with steel gray hair and a reputation for not tolerating nonsense from either side. She listened as Vance's lawyers presented their case, painting Ghost as a dangerous vigilante and the tribal council as naive enablers. Then Thomas stood and presented Sophie. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Sophie Morales, a former resident of Vance Youth Academy. She has testimony relevant to this custody matter. Vance's lead lawyer jumped up. Objection! This witness wasn't disclosed. Because she was in hiding, Thomas said calmly. Afraid for her life, which should tell you something about the quality of care at Mr. Vance's facility. Judge Horowitz leaned forward. I'll allow it, but keep it relevant, counselor. Sophie took the stand. Her voice shook at first, but gained strength as she spoke. She described the abuse, the isolation, the systematic destruction of any kid who questioned Vance's authority. She showed her scars. She named names of other children who disappeared. Ghost watched Vance's face carefully. The mask was slipping. His jaw clenched. His fingers drummed against the table, and his eyes, when they fixed on Sophie, promised retribution. When Sophie finished, the courtroom was silent. Judge Horowitz removed her glasses. Mr. Vance, I'm ordering an immediate inspection of your facility by Child Protective Services and the FBI. Until that inspection is complete, Mia Chen will remain in tribal custody. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Vance stood slowly, buttoning his jacket with deliberate precision. As Ghost passed him in the aisle, Vance leaned in close enough to whisper, You just signed her death warrant. And yours. Try it, Ghost said. Outside the courthouse, Maya pulled Ghost aside. FBI says they can have a team at the facility by tomorrow morning, but that gives Vance 24 hours to move the kids or destroy evidence. He won't run yet. He's too angry. He wants revenge first. You sound very sure of that. I am. Men like him don't cut their losses. They double down. Maya's radio crackled. Officer Tallpine, we have a situation at the safe house. Ghost's blood went cold. What situation? Unknown vehicle approaching. 2 occupants. They ran for Maya's truck. The drive back to the reservation took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Ghost's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Havoc sensed his tension, whining from the back seat. When they arrived, 2 tribal officers had a man and woman detained near the safe house. The woman was crying. The man looked terrified. Who are they? Maya demanded. One of the officers answered. They say they're looking for their daughter, Emma Vasquez. She's been missing for 2 years. Ghost's heart stuttered. From Vance's facility? The woman nodded frantically. We got a call this morning, anonymous. Said Emma might be here, that someone was helping kids escape from that place. Please, is she here? Is our daughter here? Maya exchanged a glance with Ghost. Wait here. She went into the safe house, and emerged a few minutes later with Sophie. The moment Sophie saw the couple, she started sobbing.
Do you know them?
Maya asked.
Emma's my friend. Was my friend. She...
Sophie couldn't finish. The mother's legs gave out. Her husband caught her, both of them collapsing into each other.
What happened to her?
The father asked, voice breaking. Sophie wiped her eyes.
She tried to run 6 months ago. Vance caught her at the fence. He made us all watch while he...
She stopped, swallowed hard.
She's buried on the property.
North side, near the old well. The mother's scream shattered the morning quiet. Ghost felt something inside him turn to ice. This wasn't just abuse anymore. This was murder. Maya was already on her radio.
Get me the FBI, now!
Within an hour, federal agents descended on the reservation. Special Agent Mark Hollis led the team, a man in his 40s with the kind of eyes that had seen too much and refused to look away. He took Sophie's statement personally, his expression growing harder with every word. We're moving on the facility immediately, Hollis said. Tonight. But I need to know if there's any chance Vance knows we're coming. He knows something's happening, Ghost said. But he doesn't know how much evidence we have. That's our advantage. What about the children currently at the facility?
12 on record. Sophie thinks there might be more.
Hollis turned to his team. I want hostage rescue protocols. We go in assuming armed resistance and endangered minors.
Coordinate with tribal police and local sheriff. This is a joint operation.
Maya stepped forward.
My officers know that land. We should be on point.
Agreed. Hollis looked at Ghost. You're staying here.
No.
Sergeant Sullivan, you're a civilian and a material witness. You don't get a vote.
Those kids know Mia. They know she got out. If you bring her voice in, a recording, something, they'll trust you faster.
Absolutely not. We're not using a child.
I'll do it.
Mia stood in the doorway, small but steady.
I'll record something, so they know it's safe to leave.
Hollis started to argue, then stopped. He knelt down to her eye level.
You understand what you're offering. Your voice might be the thing that convinces scared kids to trust armed strangers in the middle of the night.
I know. That's why I have to do it.
20 minutes later, Mia sat in front of a recording device, Havoc pressed against her side. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong.
My name is Mia Chen. I lived at Vance Youth Academy. Colonel Vance told me I was worthless, that nobody would ever want me, that I deserved everything he did to me. He lied. If you're hearing this, it means people are coming to help you. Real help. Not people who work for him. People who believe you. I was scared too, but I ran, and I found someone who didn't give up on me. You're not alone anymore. It's time to come home. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when she finished. The raid was scheduled for midnight. Ghost watched from the tribal police station as teams geared up, checked weapons, reviewed floor plans of the facility. Maya caught him staring.
You wish you were going, she said.
Yeah.
Why? You've done enough.
Ghost thought about his fire team, about the weight of surviving when others didn't.
Because I need to see it finished.
And if Vance is there? If he resists?
Then I hope your aim is better than his.
Maya studied him.
You want him dead.
I want him stopped. Dead is just one option. At 11:45, the teams moved out. Ghost stayed behind with Sophie and Mia, listening to radio chatter, every minute stretching like hours. Then, at 12:17, Maya's voice crackled through.
We have the facility surrounded. No movement visible. Preparing to breach.
Ghost held his breath.
Breaching now.
The sound of splintering wood came through the radio, followed by shouts of, "Federal agents!" and children screaming. Mia grabbed Ghost's hand. He squeezed back, willing everything to go right.
First floor clear. Moving to second. We've got kids chained to beds up here.
Attached was a photo of the veterinary clinic where Sargent was recovering. Ghost was moving before he finished reading, grabbing his jacket, running for the door. Maya shouted after him, but he didn't stop. Havoc sprinted ahead, already understanding. The clinic was 15 minutes away. Ghost made it in 8, tires screaming around turns, heart pounding against his ribs. The front door was open, swinging in the wind. Inside, Dr. Whitcomb lay unconscious near the reception desk, breathing, but hurt. Ghost knelt beside her long enough to confirm she'd live, then moved deeper into the building. He found Vance in the recovery room, standing over Sargent's kennel with a pistol in his hand. The dog was awake, growling weakly, trying to stand on his injured leg. "Don't," Ghost said. Vance turned. His expensive suit was rumpled, his perfect hair. My reputation? My business? My life? For what? A couple of worthless kids?
They're not worthless.
They're damaged goods. I was doing them a favor, teaching them discipline, making them useful.
You were torturing them for profit.
Vance laughed, high and wild. Profit? You think this was about money? It was about control. About proving that I could break anyone, remake them however I wanted. Those kids belonged to me.
They were never yours.
And now what? You ride off into the sunset with your little trophy? The broken girl who made you feel like a hero? Vance's finger tightened on the trigger. I'm taking that from you, starting with this animal. Havoc launched himself. Ghost crossed the distance in 3 strides, disarming Vance with a brutal efficiency that came from muscle memory. The pistol clattered across the floor. Vance tried to fight, throwing wild punches, but Ghost put him down hard, face first against the tile. Havoc, out! The dog released immediately, backing up but staying alert. Ghost pressed his knee into Vance's spine, pulling his arms back. You're done. You can't prove anything. My lawyers will. Your facility is swarming with FBI agents who just found 12 traumatized children and at least 1 body. You're finished. Vance went very still. Then he started laughing again, the sound echoing off the walls. You think this ends with me? There are a dozen more facilities just like mine. People with more money, better connections. You saved a few kids. Congratulations. But the system that created me? That's still there. And it'll still be there long after I'm gone. Ghost leaned down close. Then I guess I'll have to keep fighting it. Sirens wailed in the distance. Maya burst through the door moments later, weapon drawn, tribal officers behind her. She took in the scene, holstered her gun, and pulled out handcuffs. Richard Vance, you're under arrest for kidnapping, child abuse, fraud, and murder. As Maya read him his rights, Vance looked up at Ghost one last time. You didn't save them. You just postponed the inevitable. Maybe, Ghost said. But I gave them something you never could. What's that? A choice. Maya hauled Vance to his feet and led him out. Ghost waited until they were gone, then knelt beside Sargent's kennel. The dog whined, tail thumping weakly. You're okay, boy. You're safe now. Havoc pressed against Ghost's side, and for a moment he just sat there on the cold floor, letting the adrenaline drain away. His phone rang. It was Mia.
Ghost, are you okay?
Yeah, sweetheart, I'm okay.
Did you get him? We got him.
She was quiet for a moment. Is Sergeant okay? Ghost looked at the German Shepherd, who was struggling to his feet despite his injuries, determination in every movement. Yeah, he's tougher than he looks. Like you. Ghost smiled despite everything. Yeah, like me. When he finally made it back to the reservation, dawn was breaking over the mountains. The children from Vance's facility were being processed by social workers and medical teams, wrapped in blankets, given food and water and gentle words. Some were crying, some were silent. All of them looked lost. Mia stood with Sophie, watching them arrive. When she saw Ghost, she ran to him, and he caught her, lifting her up in a hug that felt like coming home.
You did it,
she whispered. We did it. She pulled back to look at him. What happens now? Ghost set her down, then knelt so they were eye to eye. Now we make sure they're safe. All of them. We find them families who'll actually love them, and we make sure nobody like Vance ever hurts them again.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Good thing I've got help. Mia smiled. Really smiled, for the first time since he'd known her.
Can I ask you something?
Anything.
Will you be my dad? Like, officially?
Ghost felt his throat close up. He'd faced enemy fire, watched friends die, survived things that should have broken him. But this 7-year-old girl asking if she could be his daughter nearly brought him to his knees. Yeah, he managed. Yeah, I'd like that. She hugged him again, fierce and tight, and Ghost held on like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. Maya approached, exhausted but satisfied.
FB, I found Emma Vasquez's body, exactly where Sophie said, and they're finding evidence of at least 4 other victims. Vance isn't seeing daylight again.
The other kids?
Safe. Traumatized, but safe. Social services is working on placement. Some have families to go back to. Others,
she trailed off. Others need what Mia needed, Ghost finished. Someone who won't give up. Grace joined them, moving slowly, tiredness in every step.
The council voted. We're establishing a formal program for tribal children in crisis. A place where they can heal, where they're protected by sovereignty and tradition both.
You'll need funding, Ghost said.
We'll manage.
What if you had help? Vance's victims, their trust funds, the money he stole. That could be recovered, put toward something good. Thomas appeared, overhearing. That's not a bad idea. Restitution with purpose. As the sun climbed higher, the reservation began to wake. People emerged from homes, drawn by the news, offering help however they could. Food appeared, blankets, toys for the younger children. The community closed around these broken kids like a shield. Ghost stood watching it all, havoc at his side, Mia holding his hand, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not the mission-driven purpose of military service, but something deeper. The choice to stand between the vulnerable and the void, not because orders demanded it, but because his heart did. Martinez called late that afternoon. You're all over the news. The Marine who took down a child trafficking ring. Command wants to give you a medal. I don't want a medal. I figured. What do you want? Ghost looked at Mia, who was helping distribute sandwiches to the other rescued children. Sophie beside her, both of them stronger together than they'd been apart. I want to make sure this never happens again. That's a tall order. Yeah, but I've got time. He hung up and walked over to where Dr. Whitcomb had just arrived with Sergeant. The German Shepherd was moving better, tail wagging when he saw Mia. He's going to make a full recovery. Dr. Whitcomb said. Against all odds. Mia knelt beside Sergeant, burying her face in his fur. You're my hero, she whispered to the dog. You saved me first. Ghost watched them, this girl and this dog, both survivors, both stronger than anyone had given them credit for. And he understood that sometimes salvation wasn't a single moment, but a series of choices made by imperfect people trying to do better than the world expected. The fight wasn't over. It never would be. But today, 12 children were free who hadn't been yesterday. And that was enough. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in October, 3 months after the raid that had freed 12 children and uncovered 5 bodies buried on Vance's property. Ghost sat in the gallery wearing his dress uniform, Mia pressed against his side, her small hand gripping his sleeve like a lifeline. The courtroom was packed with reporters, victims' families, and survivors who'd found the courage to face the man who'd tried to destroy them. Richard Vance sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suit and perfect hair replaced by prison-issue clothing, and the gray pallor of a man who'd finally run out of places to hide. When he turned to scan the gallery, his eyes locked on Mia. She didn't look away. You okay? Ghost whispered. I want to watch, she said. I want to see him lose. The prosecutor, a woman named Janet Reeves with 20 years of experience and a reputation for never backing down, stood to deliver her opening statement. Her voice was measured, controlled, but underneath ran a current of barely contained fury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, over the next 2 weeks you're going to hear testimony that will challenge your faith in humanity. You'll hear from children who were tortured, starved, and systematically broken by a man who claimed to be helping them. You'll hear from parents who trusted this man with their most precious gifts, only to discover he'd sold them like livestock. You'll hear forensic evidence about 5 children who never made it out alive. Vance's lead attorney, a sharp-faced man named Caldwell, objected. Your Honor, inflammatory language. Overruled, Judge Horowitz said. Continue, Ms. Reeves. You'll hear all of this, and you'll ask yourselves how this could happen in America. How a man could operate a torture facility disguised as a youth academy for 4 years without anyone stopping him. The answer is simple and terrible. Because he chose victims nobody would believe. Foster children, immigrants, kids from broken homes, children the system had already failed. Mia's grip tightened on Ghost's sleeve. But this time, Reeves continued, they were believed. Because one Marine refused to look away. Because one tribal council chose justice over jurisdictional games. And because these children, despite everything done to them, found the courage to speak. The first witness was Sophie Morales. She walked to the stand with her head high, wearing a simple dress that couldn't hide the scars on her arms. When the bailiff asked her to place her hand on the Bible, she hesitated. I don't know if I believe in God anymore, she said quietly. That's okay, the bailiff replied. Do you swear to tell the truth anyway? Yes, because the truth is all I have left. Reeves approached gently. Sophie, how old are you? 16. How long were you at Vance Youth Academy? 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days. That's very specific. I counted every one. The courtroom went silent as Sophie described her time at the facility. The cattle prods used for punishment, the isolation cells where kids were locked for days without food, the forced labor disguised as chores, the systematic destruction of any resistance through pain and humiliation. Caldwell tried to break her on cross-examination. Isn't it true, Miss Morales, that you have a history of lying to authority figures?
Yes.
He looked surprised by the admission. So the jury should take your testimony with skepticism.
I lied to survive. Every kid at that place learned to lie. We told caseworkers we were fine. We told inspectors everything was great. Because if we didn't, Colonel Vance made us pay.
She leaned forward.
But I'm not lying now. Because for the first time in my life, telling the truth won't get me hurt.
Caldwell had no response to that. The next witness was Dr. Patricia Chen, the forensic pathologist who'd examined the bodies found on Vance's property. Her testimony was clinical, precise, devastating. Cause of death for Emma Vasquez: blunt force trauma to the skull. Cause of death for Marcus Washington, age 14, internal bleeding from repeated beatings. Cause of death for 3 children whose identities were still being confirmed: malnutrition and exposure. Emma's parents sat in the front row, holding each other, weeping silently. Ghost watched Vance for any sign of remorse. There was none. Just cold calculation, like he was still looking for an angle, still convinced he could talk his way out. The prosecution called witness after witness. Social workers who'd filed reports that were ignored, former employees who'd quit and been too afraid to come forward, financial experts who'd traced the stolen trust funds, and finally, the children themselves. 12 survivors, ranging in age from 9 to 17, each telling their story. Some spoke clearly, with a strength that made Ghost's chest ache. Others broke down, needing breaks, needing tissues and reassurance. But they all spoke. They all testified. Mia was the last. Ghost had argued against it, told Reeves that Mia had been through enough, that her recorded statement should be sufficient. But Mia had insisted.
I need to do this, she'd said, for the kids who can't.
Now she walked to the witness stand, small but steady, and placed her hand on the Bible without hesitation. Reeves approached with visible gentleness. Mia, I know this is hard. Take your time.
I'm okay.
Mia's voice was clear.
I want to talk.
Can you tell the jury how you came to be at Vance Youth Academy?
My parents died in a fire when I was 5. Colonel Vance was their financial advisor. He had papers that said he was supposed to take care of me. So he did. Except he didn't actually take care of me. He hurt me.
How did he hurt you? Mia pulled up her sleeves, showing the circular burn scars.
He used cigarettes. He said I needed to learn gratitude, that I was costing him money, and pain was the price.
Several jurors looked away. One woman pressed her hands to her mouth.
What made you run away? My baby brother Noah got sick, really sick, and Colonel Vance said babies were too expensive, that Noah wasn't worth the cost of a doctor.
Mia's voice wavered, but held.
I knew if I stayed, Noah would die. So I took Sergeant, the dog I found, and I ran into the forest during the wildfire evacuation. I thought maybe dying in the fire would be better than dying at the academy. But you didn't die. No. Ghost found me, Staff Sergeant Sullivan. He saved us, both of us, me and Noah and Sergeant.
Reeves glanced at Ghost, then back to Mia. What happened when you first met Sergeant Sullivan?
I told him to take Sergeant and leave me behind. Mia's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because I thought the dog was worth more than I was. Colonel Vance told me that every day, that I was broken and bad, and nobody would ever want me. I believed him.
And what did Sergeant Sullivan say?
He said no.
He said that's not how it works, and then he carried both of us out of the smoke. He kept his promise. Caldwell stood for cross-examination, but his usual aggression was muted. Even he seemed to understand the optics of attacking a 7-year-old on the stand. "Mia, isn't it possible you misunderstood Colonel Vance's discipline? That what seemed harsh was actually for your own good?" Mia looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language.
He burned me with cigarettes. There's no misunderstanding that.
But children sometimes exaggerate.
Are you calling me a liar?
The question hung in the air. Caldwell backpedaled. "No, I'm simply suggesting that memory can be unreliable."
I remember everything. Every time he hurt me. Every time he told me I was worthless. Every kid he locked in the isolation room. Every meal he took away as punishment. I remember all of it. Do you want me to list them? Because I can. I counted those too.
Caldwell sat down. No further questions. When Mia stepped down from the stand, she walked straight to Ghost. He pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face against his chest, finally letting herself shake. "You did so good," he murmured. "I'm so proud of you."
I didn't cry.
"You were perfect." The defense called only 2 witnesses, a psychiatrist who tried to argue Vance suffered from a personality disorder that diminished his culpability, and a former military colleague who testified to Vance's distinguished service record. Neither made much impact after the prosecution's case. Then Vance himself took the stand. Ghost leaned forward, watching carefully. This was the moment Vance had been waiting for, the chance to perform, to convince a jury that he was the real victim. Caldwell led him through his military service, his retirement, his stated mission to help troubled youth. Vance spoke eloquently about discipline and structure, about how modern society had gone soft, how children needed firm guidance.
"I never meant to hurt anyone,"
Vance said, looking directly at the jury.
"I wanted to help. Sometimes my methods were harsh, but they were necessary. These children came to me broken. I tried to fix them."
Then Reeves stood for cross-examination, and the temperature in the courtroom dropped 10 degrees. "Mr. Vance, you said you wanted to help children, is that correct?"
"Yes."
"Then why did you steal $4.2 million from their trust funds?"
"Those funds were used for their care."
"Really? Because forensic accountants found that you spent $300,000 on luxury cars, $500,000 on a vacation home in Cabo, and $200,000 at casinos. How exactly did that help the children?"
Vance's composure cracked slightly. "Operating costs?"
"Operating costs for what? Cattle prods? Isolation cells? Unmarked graves?" "Objection!" Caldwell shouted. "Sustained. Ms. Reeves, watch yourself." Reeves nodded, not remotely chastened.
"Mr. Vance, you testified that discipline was necessary. Can you explain why Emma Vasquez needed to be beaten to death?"
"That was an accident."
"An accident you buried and covered up rather than reported?"
"I panicked."
"You panicked. For 2 years. While you collected payments from her trust fund for a dead child's care." Reeves moved closer. "Tell me, what part of cashing checks for a murdered teenager counts as helping?"
Vance's face flushed red.
You don't understand. These kids, they were nothing. Refuse from broken homes. I gave them purpose. I gave them discipline. I made them useful."
The courtroom erupted. Judge Horowitz slammed her gavel. "Order! Order in this court!" But the damage was done. Vance had shown his true face, and every juror had seen it. Reeves smiled coldly.
No further questions.
Closing arguments came 2 days later. Caldwell tried to walk back Vance's testimony, to paint him as a flawed man who'd made mistakes,
but didn't deserve life in prison.
No one was buying it. Reeves stood before the jury and spoke with quiet intensity. The defense wants you to believe this was about discipline gone wrong, about good intentions twisted by stress. Don't believe it. This was about power. About a man who saw vulnerable children as objects to exploit for profit and personal satisfaction. He didn't make mistakes. He made choices. Every cigarette burn, every stolen dollar, every child he buried. Those were choices. She paused, letting the words settle. Mia Chen is 7 years old. She believed she was worth less than a dying dog. That's what Richard Vance did to her. That's what he did to 12 children who survived and 5 who didn't. And he would have kept doing it if one Marine hadn't refused to look away. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood, her face grave. On the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Emma Vasquez, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of child abuse resulting in death for Marcus Washington? Guilty. On 18 counts of child abuse and torture? Guilty. The verdicts kept coming. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 23 counts total. Vance stood motionless, his face draining of color as his carefully constructed world collapsed. Judge Horowitz scheduled sentencing for the following week. Ghost didn't attend. He'd seen enough. But he watched the news coverage from the reservation, Mia curled up beside him, as the judge handed down consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. "He'll die in prison," the reporter said. Mia looked up at Ghost. "Is it over now?" "Yeah, sweetheart. It's over." "Good." She leaned against him. "Can we go see Sergeant? I want to tell him." They drove to the veterinary clinic, where Sergeant was now fully recovered, his leg healed, his weight back to healthy levels. When Mia entered, the German Shepherd's tail started wagging so hard his whole body shook. "We won," Mia told the dog, kneeling to hug him. "He can't hurt anyone anymore." Sergeant licked her face, and she laughed, the sound pure and unguarded. Dr. Whitcomb approached Ghost. "I've been meaning to talk to you. Sergeant's ready to be discharged. He needs a permanent home." "I know a little girl who'd like to adopt him." "I was hoping you'd say that." She handed him adoption papers. "He's officially a civilian now, retired with honors." Ghost signed the papers, then turned to Mia. "Hey, sweetheart, how would you feel about Sergeant coming to live with us?" Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? He can stay?" "If you want him to." She threw her arms around the dog. "I want him. I want him forever." The paperwork for Ghost's adoption of Mia took longer than Vance's trial. There were home studies and background checks and interviews with social workers who asked questions designed to uncover any hidden motivations. Ghost answered them all honestly, never hiding his PTSD, his grief over his lost family, his determination to give Mia the safety she deserved. The final hearing was in tribal court, presided over by Judge Mary Runninghorse, a woman in her 70s with kind eyes and a reputation for fierce protection of children's welfare. "Staff Sergeant Sullivan," she said, "you understand that adoption is permanent, that you're taking full legal and emotional responsibility for this child?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And Mia, do you understand what adoption means? That Ghost would be your father in every legal sense?" Mia nodded seriously. "It means he won't leave. That he chose me." "That's exactly right," Judge Runninghorse smiled. "Then by the power vested in me by the Salish Kootenai Nation,
I grant this adoption. Mia Chen, you are now Mia Sullivan.
Congratulations. The small courtroom erupted in applause. Grace Redwing was there, and Maya Tallpine, and Sophie Morales, and all the tribal council members who'd fought alongside them. Even Martinez had flown in from D.C., standing in the back with a rare smile. Mia turned to Ghost.
I have your name now.
You have my name, my protection, and my word that I will never let anyone hurt you again.
I know.
She hugged him tight.
Dad.
The word hit Ghost like a physical force.
Dad. Not Ghost. Not Sergeant Sullivan. Dad.
He held his daughter close and let himself cry right there in front of everyone, because some moments were too big to hide behind military composure. That night, there was a celebration at the reservation. The tribal community had prepared a feast, traditional foods alongside donated pizzas and store-bought cakes. Children ran through the gathering space, their laughter echoing off the mountains.
The 12 kids rescued from Vance's facility were there, some already placed with loving families, others still healing in tribal foster care. Sophie found Ghost near the food tables.
I wanted to thank you for believing us, for not giving up.
You did the hard part. You testified. You survived.
Yeah, but you gave me a reason to. You showed me that some adults actually keep their promises.
She paused.
I'm going to college next year. The tribe has a scholarship program. I want to study social work. Help other kids like us.
Ghost felt pride swell in his chest. You're going to be amazing at it.
I hope so.
She glanced toward Mia, who was teaching some younger kids how to play with Havoc and Sergeant.
She's lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to have her.
As the celebration continued, Ghost found himself standing with Grace, watching the children play.
You changed a lot of lives,
Grace said.
We all did.
No. You started it.
One man who saw an injustice and refused to accept it. She turned to him. The council has been talking. We want to establish a formal program, a safe house for children in crisis. We'd like you to help run it. Ghost was quiet for a moment.
I'm not a social worker. I'm a Marine.
You're a protector. That's what we need.
Grace smiled.
Think about it. No pressure. But the offer stands.
Later, as the stars came out and the celebration wound down, Ghost sat on the porch of his new home, a small house on the reservation that the tribe had helped him find. Mia was inside, asleep in her own room, Sergeant curled up at the foot of her bed. Havoc lay beside Ghost, head resting on his boot. Martinez called. Saw the adoption news. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
You know, Command officially closed your case. No charges for the kidnapping allegation. Vance's lawyers withdrew everything.
Good to know I'm not a fugitive anymore.
Martinez laughed.
How's it feel, being a dad?
Ghost thought about it.
Terrifying. And right. Like this is what I was supposed to do all along. Maybe it was.
Martinez was quiet for a beat.
Listen, I wanted to tell you something. That investigation into Vance, it opened up 6 other cases. Facilities just like his, operating in legal gray zones. FBI is moving on all of them.
How many kids?
At least 40 so far, maybe more. And it's because you wouldn't let one little girl be forgotten. Ghost closed his eyes. 40 children. 40 lives changed because he'd listened to his instincts, because he'd chosen to fight instead of walk away. They're going to need help, he said. Those kids, they're going to need people who understand. Yeah, they will. You thinking about Grace's offer?
Maybe.
Do it. The world needs more people who give a damn. After they hung up, Ghost sat in the darkness, listening to the wind move through the pines. He thought about his fire team, about the years he'd spent carrying survivor's guilt like a stone around his neck. And he realized, finally, that maybe he hadn't survived by accident. Maybe he'd survived for this. For Mia and Sophie, and all the children still waiting for someone to see them, to believe them, to fight for them. The door opened behind him. Mia stepped out, wrapped in a blanket, Sergeant at her heels. "Couldn't sleep?" Ghost asked.
I wanted to make sure you were still here.
"I'm not going anywhere." She sat down beside him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They sat like that for a while, father and daughter, watching the stars emerge one by one.
Dad?
Mia said quietly. "Yeah?"
Thank you for not leaving me behind.
Ghost pulled her closer. "Thank you for teaching me what I was fighting for." And in that moment, beneath the vast Montana sky, surrounded by a community that had chosen justice over convenience, Ghost understood that redemption wasn't something you earned through suffering. It was something you built. One choice at a time, one life protected, one promise kept. The fight wasn't over. There were more children out there, more monsters disguised as helpers. But tonight, 12 kids were safe. Tonight, his daughter was home. And tomorrow, he'd get up and fight again. Because that's what fathers do. 6 months after the adoption became final, Ghost stood in the driveway of what used to be an abandoned ranch house, watching a construction crew frame out new walls. The property sat on 20 acres at the edge of the reservation, donated by the tribe and funded by restitution money recovered from Vance's stolen assets. The sign out front read, "Sullivan Safe Haven," in letters carved by Joseph Running Crane himself. Mia ran past him with Sergeant and Havoc, all three racing toward the open field where Maya was setting up training equipment. At 8 years old now, Mia had gained 15 pounds, started laughing without looking over her shoulder first, and developed an alarming talent for organizing adults twice her age. "Dad, the kennels need to be bigger," she called back. "If we're training rescue dogs, they need more space." "Yes, ma'am," Ghost replied, hiding his smile. Grace approached, carrying blueprints. "She's going to run this place better than either of us." "Already does." Ghost took the plans, studying the layout. 12 bedrooms for children in crisis, a therapy center, a training facility for rescue dogs who'd partner with trauma survivors. Everything he and Grace had dreamed up over late-night planning sessions was finally taking shape.
We got approved for our first placement,
Grace said quietly.
9-year-old boy, removed from a situation similar to Vance's operation. He'll arrive next week.
Ghost felt his chest tighten with familiar purpose. What's his story?
Foster care bounced him through 6 homes in 3 years. Last family returned him because he was too difficult.
Grace's voice hardened.
Too difficult. Like a child is a defective product.
What's his name?
Marcus. Marcus Webb. He doesn't talk much. Has a history of running away.
We'll be ready. Sophie appeared from inside the main house, now 19, and enrolled in social work classes at the tribal college. She'd moved into one of the staff quarters 3 months ago, helping coordinate the program while finishing her degree.
Ghost, we have a problem, she said, holding up her phone. Channel 5 wants to do a story on the Haven. They're calling you the hero Marine who saved all those kids.
Ghost's jaw tightened. No cameras.
They're pretty insistent. Good publicity could help with donations.
I said no. He softened his tone. This isn't about me. It's about the kids. The last thing they need is cameras treating them like a heartwarming news segment. Sophie nodded, understanding. I'll tell them no interview, but they can film the facility without showing any children. That works. As she walked away, Grace studied Ghost. You still don't see yourself as a hero, do you? I'm just a guy who couldn't walk away. That's exactly what makes you one. Before Ghost could respond, Mia's scream cut through the air. Not fear, excitement. He turned to see her running toward a van that had just pulled up. Martinez stepped out, grinning, and Mia launched herself at him.
Uncle Martinez, you came!
Promised I would, didn't I? Martinez caught her, swinging her around. Wow, you got tall.
I grew 2 inches since Christmas. Dad measured.
Martinez set her down and approached Ghost, hand extended. They shook, then pulled into a brief hug. Place looks good, Martinez said, surveying the construction. Really good. What are you doing here? Thought you were buried in cases back in D.C. I am, but I wanted to tell you in person. Martinez pulled an envelope from his jacket. That investigation into facilities like Vance's? We just got the last conviction. 43 children recovered total. All the operators are in prison. Ghost took the envelope, hands unsteady. Inside were photos of children, smiling children, with their new families. Safe, whole. Because you wouldn't let go, Martinez said quietly. Because you made me keep digging. I just did what needed doing. Yeah, and it changed everything. Martinez glanced toward where Mia was now showing Havoc's training routine to some visiting tribal members. How's she doing? Really? Nightmares about twice a week now, down from every night. Started painting and art therapy, which her counselor says is huge progress. Makes straight A's in school, and informed me last week that she wants to be either a veterinarian or a Supreme Court justice. Ghost smiled. She hasn't decided which yet. Smart kid. Too smart. Yesterday, she asked me to explain qualified immunity because she's pretty sure it's unconstitutional. Martinez laughed. She's definitely your daughter. The words settled warmly in Ghost's chest. Yeah, she is. That evening, Ghost found Mia in her room, working on homework with Sargent sprawled across her feet. The walls were covered in drawings now, bright, colorful scenes of dogs and mountains and families, a far cry from the terrified child who'd believed a dog's life was worth more than her own. Hey, sweetheart, got a minute? She looked up, pencil still in hand. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I wanted to talk to you about Marcus, the boy who's coming next week. Mia set down her pencil, giving him full attention. Okay. He's been through a lot, different from what you went through, but still hard. He might not trust us right away, might test boundaries, push back, maybe run. Like I did. Yeah, like you did. Ghost sat on the edge of her bed. I need you to understand that helping him might be frustrating sometimes. He might say things that hurt, might reject kindness because he doesn't believe it's real. Mia was quiet for a moment, absently stroking Sargent's fur. When I first got here, I kept waiting for you to send me back. Every time I made a mistake, I thought that was it, that you'd realize I wasn't worth the trouble. You were always worth it. I know that now, but I didn't then. She looked up at him. Marcus probably doesn't know it either, so we'll just have to keep showing him until he believes it. Ghost felt pride swell so strong it nearly choked him. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher, she smiled. Can I meet him when he arrives? Or should I give him space first? Let's see how he's doing. We'll follow his lead. Okay. She hesitated. Dad? What if he doesn't like dogs? Not everyone does. Then we'll work with that. Whatever he needs.
Marcus Webb arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, driven by a tribal social worker named Linda Blackfeet. Ghost watched from the porch as the van pulled up, noting how the boy pressed himself against the far door, as far from the adults as possible. When Linda opened the door, Marcus didn't move.
Marcus, we're here,
Linda said gently.
Remember we talked about this?
The boy stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. He was small for 9, all angles and defensive posture, with dark hair falling over eyes that had learned not to hope. Ghost descended the steps slowly, hands visible, posture relaxed.
Hey, Marcus, I'm Ghost. This is my place.
Marcus's eyes flicked to him, then away.
Stupid name.
You're not wrong.
My real name's James, but everyone calls me Ghost. You can call me whatever you're comfortable with.
I'm not comfortable.
That's fair. This is new. Ghost knelt down to eye level, keeping his distance. Listen, I know you've been moved around a lot. I know adults have made you promises they didn't keep. I'm not going to tell you to trust me because trust is earned. But I will tell you this. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. And if you want to leave, we'll talk about it. Deal? Marcus studied him suspiciously. What if I just run, right now? Then I'd ask why, and I'd try to understand. But I wouldn't chase you down like you're a criminal. You're not a prisoner here. What am I then? A kid who deserves better than what you've gotten. Marcus's facade cracked for just a second, something vulnerable flashing across his face before he buried it again. I don't like dogs. Okay, the dogs stay away from you unless you change your mind. And if I break stuff, then we'll talk about why and fix it together. You're lying. Adults always lie. Maybe the ones you've met. I don't. Ghost stood slowly. Your room's ready whenever you want to see it. No pressure. Take your time. He walked back to the porch, giving Marcus space. Linda stayed with the boy, speaking too quietly for Ghost to hear. After 5 long minutes, Marcus finally climbed out of the van, holding a single garbage bag of possessions. Nia appeared in the doorway, but Ghost touched her shoulder. Not yet. Let him settle. They watched as Linda led Marcus inside, showed him to his room. Through the window, Ghost saw the boy drop his bag and immediately check the exits, counting doors and windows. Escape routes. Ghost recognized the behavior from his own combat experience. He's scared, Mia whispered. Yeah, he is. Can I make him cookies? That helped me. When Grace made me cookies that first week. That's a great idea. An hour later, Mia knocked on Marcus's door, carrying a plate of chocolate chip cookies still warm from the oven. Ghost waited in the hallway, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to give them privacy. Go away, Marcus called. I have cookies. I'm leaving them outside your door. You don't have to eat them if you don't want to. Silence. I'm Mia. I live here too. Well, I'm adopted, so I really live here, not just staying, like you. She paused. I was in a bad place before. Like, really bad. So, if you want to talk about it, I get it. And if you don't want to talk, I get that too. More silence. Okay, well, the cookies are here. And my room's the one with the painting of dogs on the door if you need anything. She set down the plate and walked back to Ghost, her face carefully neutral. Did I do okay? You did perfect. They returned to the kitchen where Grace was preparing dinner. How's he doing? Scared, defensive, normal. Ghost checked his watch. I'm giving him until dinner to decide if he wants to come out. If not, I'll bring food to him. Good plan. At 6 o'clock, Marcus hadn't emerged. Ghost prepared a plate and carried it to the boy's room, knocking gently. I'm not hungry. Okay.
I'm leaving dinner outside your door anyway. If you get hungry later, it'll be there.
Ghost paused.
Marcus, I need you to know something. I was in the military for 12 years. I've seen a lot of scared kids in a lot of bad situations, and every single one of them tried to act tough because they thought showing fear made them weak. It doesn't. Being scared is smart when you've been hurt. You don't have to pretend with me.
No response. Ghost left the food and returned downstairs. Mia was setting the table, moving around Sophie and Grace with practiced ease. They ate dinner as a family, the conversation flowing naturally, filling the space Marcus's absence left. Later that night, Ghost checked on the plate outside Marcus's door. It was empty, licked clean. The boy had eaten every bite. The next morning, Ghost found Marcus in the training yard, sitting on a fence rail, watching Maya work with Havoc. The boy had ventured out early, probably thinking nobody would be awake yet. Ghost approached slowly, leaning against the fence several feet away.
Morning?
Marcus grunted. They watched in silence as Maya put Havoc through his paces, the dog responding to hand signals with precision and enthusiasm.
Thought you didn't like dogs,
Ghost said casually.
I don't. I'm just bored. Fair enough.
More silence.
The cookies were okay, Marcus admitted grudgingly. Mia's a good baker. Taught herself from YouTube.
The girl who came to my door?
Yeah, she's my daughter.
Marcus shot him a sharp look.
For real? Like, adopted?
For real.
Why'd you adopt her?
Ghost considered how to answer.
Because she needed a family, and I needed to remember what I was fighting for. That's weird.
Yeah, it is. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Is she gonna try to be my sister or something? Only if you want. No pressure either way.
I don't want a sister.
Okay.
Or a family.
That's your choice. Marcus looked at him suspiciously.
You're supposed to tell me I'm wrong. That family is important and I should be grateful.
I'm not going to tell you how to feel. Your feelings are yours. The boy's defenses wavered again.
My last foster dad said I was ungrateful. Said I should be happy anyone would take me.
Your last foster dad was an idiot. Marcus's eyes went wide.
You can't say that.
Why not? It's true. You're not a charity case. You're a person. And any adult who made you feel otherwise doesn't deserve to be called a father. For the first time, Marcus almost smiled. Almost.
You're weird.
I've been told. Over the next weeks, Marcus settled into a careful routine. He attended the tribal school, did his homework without being asked, and maintained polite distance from everyone. But Ghost noticed small changes. The boy started eating breakfast with them instead of hiding in his room. He stopped checking the exits quite so obsessively, and once Ghost caught him laughing at one of Mia's stories before remembering to look indifferent. The breakthrough came a month after Marcus arrived. Ghost was in the training facility, working with a newly rescued German shepherd named Scout, who'd been found abandoned on a highway. The dog was skittish, flinching at sudden movements, clearly traumatized. Marcus appeared in the doorway, watching. "You can come in if you want," Ghost offered. "I told you, I don't like dogs." "I know, but you keep showing up to watch training sessions." Marcus shuffled his feet. "I'm just bored." "Uh-huh." Ghost turned back to Scout, offering the dog treats, speaking in low, calm tones. "This guy's had a rough time. Some side of the road. He doesn't trust people anymore. Smart dog."
Maybe, but he's also lonely. Dogs aren't meant to be alone. Neither are people.
Marcus moved closer, stopping a few feet away. "What are you doing with him?"
Teaching him that not all humans are dangerous. That it's okay to trust again, even after you've been hurt.
What if he doesn't learn?
Then we keep trying, however long it takes.
Ghost glanced at Marcus.
Want to help?
I don't know anything about dogs.
I'll teach you.
Marcus hesitated, a whole war playing out across his young face. Finally, he stepped forward.
What do I do?
Ghost handed him a treat.
Hold it out in your flat palm. Let him come to you. Don't force it.
Marcus extended his hand, tentative and uncertain. Scout sniffed the air, tail tucked, torn between hunger and fear. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Scout took one step forward, then another.
Finally, he stretched his neck and gently took the treat from Marcus's palm. The boy's face lit up with pure wonder.
He trusted me.
Yeah, he did.
But he doesn't even know me.
Sometimes trust starts before knowledge. Sometimes it's just a choice to try. Marcus fed Scout another treat, then another, his movements becoming more confident. When he finally looked up at Ghost, there were tears on his face.
I don't want to leave here,
he whispered.
But everyone always makes me leave.
Ghost knelt beside him. Marcus, listen to me. I'm not everyone, and this isn't a temporary placement. If you want to stay, you can stay, for as long as you need. Months, years, forever. Your choice.
What if I'm too much trouble?
You're not, and even if you were, we'd work through it. That's what families do.
You keep saying that word.
Family?
Yeah.
Ghost met the boy's eyes. Because that's what we are. If you want to be. Marcus broke then. Really broke. Crying in a way that suggested he'd been holding it back for years. Ghost pulled him into a hug, and the boy didn't fight it, just clung on like he was drowning, and Ghost was the only solid thing in the world. I'm scared, Marcus sobbed. I'm scared to believe you. I know. That's okay. You can be scared and stay. You don't have to choose. They sat there on the floor of the training facility, a broken man and a broken boy and a broken dog, all of them learning what it meant to heal together. That evening, Marcus asked if he could eat dinner with everyone, not just sit at the table, but actually participate. He told Mia her cookies were the best he'd ever had. He asked Sophie about her college classes. He even laughed when Grace told an embarrassing story about Ghost burning toast that morning. After dinner, as Ghost was cleaning up, Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. Can I ask you something?
Always.
That girl who came to my room, Mia, she said she was in a bad place before. What happened to her?
Ghost dried his hands, choosing his words carefully.
She was hurt by someone who was supposed to protect her, like you were. She ran away during a wildfire, carrying her baby brother, trying to save him, even though she thought she wasn't worth saving herself.
Marcus's eyes widened.
That's how you found her?
Yeah. She tried to give me her brother and leave herself behind. Thought a dying dog deserved rescue more than she did.
But you saved both of them.
I saved all three of them. Her brother, and the dog. Marcus was quiet for a moment.
Is that why you do this?
The whole rescue thing? Partly. Mia taught me something important. She taught me that the people who need help most are usually the ones who've been taught they don't deserve it. Ghost looked at Marcus directly. You deserve it, Marcus. You deserve safety and kindness, and people who don't give up on you,
even if nobody's shown you that before. The boy's chin trembled.
I want to stay. For real.
Then you will.
What if my caseworker says I have to move?
Then I'll fight her. I'll fight the whole system if I have to. You're not going anywhere you don't want to go." Marcus threw his arms around Ghost's waist, hugging him with desperate strength. Ghost held him, making a silent promise to never let this child feel disposable again. Upstairs, Mia watched from the landing, Sergeant beside her. Sophie joined her, putting an arm around her shoulders.
"He's going to be okay,"
Sophie said quietly.
"I know. Dad doesn't give up on people."
"Neither do you," Mia smiled.
"I learned from the best."
3 months later, Ghost stood in tribal court again, this time with Marcus beside him. The adoption hearing was shorter than Mia's had been, the judge already familiar with Ghost's commitment to the children in his care. "Marcus Webb," Judge Runninghorse said, "do you understand what adoption means?" Marcus nodded. "It means Ghost is choosing me, on purpose, forever." "That's right. And do you want to be adopted?"
"Yes, ma'am."
"Then by the power vested in me, I grant this adoption. Marcus Webb, you are now Marcus Sullivan. Welcome to your family." This time when Marcus hugged Ghost, he wasn't crying. He was smiling. The Sullivan Safe Haven officially opened 6 months later, with capacity for 12 children and a waiting list that broke Ghost's heart. Each child arrived carrying trauma like luggage, defensive and scared, and convinced they weren't worth the effort. And each one, slowly, carefully, began to heal. Ghost watched it happen again and again. The moment a child smiled without guarding it. The first time they asked for help instead of suffering in silence. The day they stopped checking exits because they finally believed nobody was going to hurt them. Mia and Marcus became integral to the program, showing new arrivals that survival was possible, that trust could be rebuilt. They shared their stories, not as warnings, but as promises. We made it through. So will you. One evening, 2 years after the Haven opened, Ghost found himself on the porch again, watching the sun set over the Montana mountains. Mia sat on one side of him, Marcus on the other. Havoc and Sergeant dozed nearby, retired from active duty, but still very much on guard. Inside, 8 other children were finishing homework, playing games, being kids in ways many of them had never been allowed before. Sophie emerged with her degree freshly completed, now the Haven's official youth counselor. Maya pulled up in her patrol car, stopping by like she did most evenings, checking in on everyone. Grace arrived with dinner, refusing to let Ghost cook after what she called the great spaghetti disaster of last Tuesday. Martinez called, as he did every week, updating Ghost on new cases, new rescues, new children being freed from situations like Vance's. The network had grown beyond anything Ghost had imagined. Safe houses on 3 reservations now. Federal task force dedicated to finding and closing abusive facilities. And a national database of survivors willing to testify, to share their stories, to make sure no child ever again went unheard.
"Dad?"
Mia said, pulling Ghost from his thoughts. "Yeah, sweetheart?"
"A social worker called today. There's a girl, 6 years old, found wandering alone near the Canadian border. She doesn't speak English. Nobody knows where she came from. She's terrified of everyone."
Ghost heard the question beneath the statement. "What's her name?"
"Anna. Or, at least, that's what she told the hospital staff before she stopped talking completely."
Marcus looked up. "Can we help her?" Ghost thought about that 7-year-old who'd once begged him to save a dog instead of herself. About a 9-year-old who'd believed he was too broken to deserve a home. About every child who'd passed through these doors, carrying wounds that weren't their fault. "Yeah," he said. "We can help her."
"When does she arrive?"
"Tomorrow morning." Mia stood, suddenly energized.
"I'll make cookies, and we should put flowers in her room. And maybe a stuffed animal? Do we know if she likes stuffed animals?"
Marcus joined her. "I'll help. We should make the room really welcoming. They disappeared inside, already planning, already determined to make one more scared child feel safe. Ghost listened to their voices, Mia's confident and warm, Marcus's still tentative but growing stronger every day. Grace sat down beside him, settling into the chair with a contented sigh.
You know, when you first brought Mia here, I wasn't sure this would work.
One traumatized Marine trying to save one traumatized child. It seemed like too little against too much darkness. And now? Now I see what I should have known from the beginning. Light doesn't fight darkness by being louder or stronger. It fights by refusing to go out. She smiled. You're a stubborn light, James Sullivan. I had good teachers. Sophie joined them, carrying mugs of coffee.
I have news. Remember Sarah Chen, Mia's mother? I've been researching her family tree, working with tribal genealogists. Mia has relatives, cousins on the Salish side, second and third generation. They want to meet her.
Ghost felt his chest tighten. Does Mia know?
Not yet. I wanted to ask you first. Some adoptive parents feel threatened by biological connections.
I'm not threatened. She deserves to know where she comes from. He paused. Set it up. We'll do it together. Maya leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed, looking every inch the protector she'd always been. Got a call from the FBI today. They want to use the Haven as a model for other tribal nations. Funding, training protocols, the whole program.
Seriously?
Seriously. What you've built here, Ghost, it's bigger than one place. It's proving that communities can protect their own when the system fails them. Ghost shook his head, overwhelmed.
This wasn't supposed to be big. It was just supposed to be enough.
Sometimes enough becomes everything. As night fell and stars emerged, the porch filled with people who'd become family, not through blood, but through choice. They shared stories and coffee, planned for tomorrow, and found comfort in the knowledge that they were building something that mattered. Inside, Mia and Marcus were arranging Anna's room with a care that came from remembering what it felt like to arrive with nothing and be offered everything. Their laughter drifted through the open windows, bright and unguarded. Ghost thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago, broken, isolated, surviving but not living, carrying the weight of lives he couldn't save. And he thought about the man he was now. Father to 2, mentor to dozens, builder of a safe place in a dangerous world. The journey from one to the other hadn't been easy. There had been nightmares and setbacks, days when the darkness felt overwhelming. But there had also been moments of pure light. Mia calling him Dad for the first time. Marcus finally laughing without covering it up. Every child who learned to trust again, to hope again, to believe they deserved good things. His phone buzzed, a message from the social worker. Anna's arrival confirmed for 8 a.m. Thank you for taking her. You're her last hope. Ghost stared at those words. Last hope. He'd been someone's last hope once, though he hadn't known it at the time. Mia had saved him as much as he'd saved her, pulled him back from the edge by needing him to be better than his grief. He typed back, "She's not our last hope. She's our next beginning. We'll be ready." And they would be, because that's what family did. They showed up, they held on, and they refused to let anyone be forgotten. The night deepened, but the porch stayed warm with presence and purpose. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears to soothe, new trust to earn. But tonight, there was peace. Ghost stood, stretching, and headed inside. He checked on each child, a nightly ritual he'd never skip. They slept soundly now,
most of them, nightmares growing less frequent as safety became real instead of just a promise. In Mia's room, she was still awake, reading by flashlight. She looked up when he entered. "Can't sleep?" he asked.
Thinking about Anna. What if she doesn't like us? What if we can't help her?
Ghost sat on the edge of her bed. "You were scared nobody could help you either, remember?"
Yeah.
"But we did. And you helped Marcus. And together, you'll help Anna."
Not because you're perfect, but because you understand what she's going through. Mia set down her book.
Dad, do you think Mom and Dad, my first parents, would be proud of me?
The question landed heavy in Ghost's chest.
"Yeah, sweetheart. I think they'd be incredibly proud. You survived something that would have broken most adults. And instead of letting it make you hard, you let it make you kind."
I miss them sometimes, even though I barely remember them.
That's okay. You can miss them and love me at the same time. Love doesn't work like there's only so much to go around. It multiplies. She hugged him tight.
I'm glad you found me in that fire.
Me too. Best thing that ever happened to me. After tucking her in, Ghost made his way to his own room. But he stopped in the doorway, looking back at the house he'd built from ruins, literal and metaphorical. 2 years ago, a little girl had pushed through a blizzard carrying her baby brother, believing she was worthless.
She'd begged a stranger to save a dying dog instead of her because that's what adults had taught her to believe about her own value. And a broken Marine had looked at her and seen his purpose. Everything that followed, every child saved, every life changed, every moment of healing, it all traced back to one choice. The choice to not walk away. The choice to believe that one person could make a difference, even when the darkness felt infinite. Ghost didn't know if God had a plan, didn't know if his survival in Afghanistan had been divine intervention or dumb luck. But he knew this. Whatever force had brought Mia into his life, whatever cosmic thread had connected them on that smoky mountain, he was grateful for it. Because she hadn't just given him a reason to keep living. She'd shown him what he was living for. Tomorrow, Anna would arrive, scared and alone and certain that nobody wanted her. And she'd learn, slowly but surely, that she was wrong, that she was wanted, valued, cherished. That her story didn't end with abandonment, but began with being found. Just like Mia. Just like Marcus. Just like every child who passed through these doors. Ghost climbed into bed, Havoc settling beside him with a contented sigh. Through the window, he could see the mountains standing guard, eternal and unmovable. And somewhere in the darkness, a 6-year-old girl was spending her last night believing she was alone. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Because morning would come, and with it, a family that chose to see her, to fight for her, to prove that sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expect. Sometimes they're broken too. Sometimes they're stumbling through their own darkness. Sometimes they're Marines with PTSD and guilt they can't shake, who find redemption in keeping promises to children the world tried to forget. And sometimes, that's exactly what both of them need. Ghost closed his eyes, peace settling over him like a blanket. Tomorrow would be hard. Every tomorrow would be hard. But hard didn't mean impossible. He'd learned that from a 7-year-old who'd carried her brother through a blizzard, from a 9-year-old who'd decided to trust one more time, from every child who'd chosen survival when giving up would have been easier. They were the real heroes.
He was just the one who refused to leave them behind. And that, Ghost understood with complete clarity, was exactly where he was meant to be.